Hey guys, what's going on and welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be talking about the 2020 presidential election, of course. So we're going to look at the mail-in ballot returns from each state. So some of them don't have data, like the state of Alabama. So we're just going to go with our gut. We all know Alabama is a safe Republican state, maybe likely in a best case scenario for Joe Biden, but it's a red state. So Alaska is what we're going to look at next. And again, this isn't going to be perfect, but it's going to be pretty close. So Alaska, this is actually good news for the Democrats because Alaska is a pretty red state. 26% of mail-in ballots that were requested were from Democrats, 24% from Republicans, 50% from other, non-party preference, independents, or libertarians, that kind of thing. But the Democrats have returned more ballots than Republicans so far as a raw percentage. So 30% of mail-in ballots that have been returned are from Democrats, 22% from Republicans. But right now, we're seeing most of them being returned from other, party affiliations. But we're kind of gonna ignore this and assume that there's this even split between the GOP and the Democrats. So it wouldn't really change anything. But the Democrats are ahead by 8% right now. That would make Alaska a likely blue state. And by the way, these are not the results that we're gonna see. Democrats are much more likely to vote by mail than the Republicans are. So if the Republicans are close like they are in Alaska, this is like the Republicans are pretty close in Alaska. They're only losing it by 8% in a pretty small state. They'll be able to overcome that, and they'll be able to win Alaska. So these are not going to hold by Election Day. However, these are going to 100% be interesting to look at. So Arizona right now, pretty solid for the Democrats. They are currently winning by 14 in Arizona, which would make it safe. So again, this is actually pretty good news for them. 14% is not insurmountable, but they're returning a lot more mail-in ballots than Republicans are, as you can see here. So, yeah. Although it also could just be that the Republicans haven't filled out their ballots yet. So now going over to Arkansas, the Republicans, as expected, are winning here easily. So that is a GOP Trump state, easily there. And the Democrats aren't really making it close there. Then Arkansas is a red state. Now California. That Discord. Okay, well, hopefully that. Okay, California right now, as expected, the Democrats are crushing it because California, since it's such a blue state, we might just see 75 to 80% of the population vote by mail or vote early. So that's this is that result is going to hold. And then also party registration in Colorado, the ones that have been returned. Again, mostly Democrats. So as expected, Colorado mail-in ballots were expected to look very good for the Democrats. They are right now. And we're also going to look at the state of Connecticut. Excuse me. I have a bit of a cold right now. I don't know why. Don't worry. I do not have COVID-19. But yeah, Connecticut, as expected, is going to be a blue state. Delaware will also probably be blue due to the vote by mail ballots coming in. I don't know why it's taking forever to load. Okay, there we go. So Democrats are doing better than the trend here, which is good news for Democrats, is that they're returning more ballots than Republicans so far. So Delaware's 2 out of every 3 mail-in ballots that have been returned belong to Democrats, and they're still 15% independent. So Delaware safe for the Democrats, and so we're seeing the Democrats are doing exactly what you'd expect in states like California, Colorado, Delaware, Connecticut. They're doing a good job. They're making these states, they're kind of making it insurmountable for the Republicans to overcome, even if they turn out on Election Day. DC, it doesn't want to let me pull that up. So we're just going to, again, do what we did for Alabama, go with our gut. DC is a blue state, or blue city, rather. Now, Florida, this is a swing state, and the ballot returns, I already tweeted this. The ballot returns look very, very good for Democrats. Party registration, plus 19 for the Democrats, and I think this is actually updating. To a point where on Twitter, I think the Democrats are only ahead by 15 when I tweeted, which was an hour ago. So yeah, and then we're gonna look at the state of Georgia. Whoops, wrong column. Georgia, again, this is interesting to see because of the fact that the Republicans are actually doing better than you'd expect. It's a tie, and again, Democrats are more likely to vote by mail. So we're going to give the GOP, in every tie, the GOP is going to have the edge for the fact that they are, A, in Georgia, they're outperforming by a little bit. B, they're not expected to have the lead, so Georgia is looking very good for the Republican Party right now. So, yeah. We're also going to look at the state of Hawaii. the ballots that have been returned. And by the way, in Hawaii, they're automatically mailed a ballot. And 89% has been for the Democrats, only 2% for the Republicans. That's a landslide. Hawaii, very solid for Joe Biden. In the state of Idaho, we can also take a look at Idaho. And it's actually a little better for the Democrats than you'd expect. I mean, they're only losing by, 22 points. So better than they usually are, but still a safe red state. We're going to try to get through this as quick as we can. Not really going to talk about these states like Illinois that aren't important. We're going to talk about the swing states a bit more. Again, the Democrats are outperforming, or actually, they're underperforming what you'd expect, but it's still a blue state. This could be a bit of a worrying trend for Democrats. Maybe they lose. Maybe we do see a bit of a swing to the right in Illinois, one bigger than we'd expected. But yeah, in Indiana, we can also look at this state. Again, the Democrats are not doing as well as they would hope to do. The Republicans are outperforming the requests. So we've seen a lot of ballots come in. And we can, of course, there are going to be Republicans who are going to vote against Trump, and there might be a few Democrats who vote against Biden. But this is a good estimate of where we are as of right now. And then we're also going to be looking at the state of I'm in Iowa. In Iowa, I already checked this before. The ballot returns look very, very good for Democrats. Very good. And I'll tell you why. Iowa is kind of a mail-in state. They do a good job of counting their votes quickly. And as of right now, the Democrats are really doing well here. They're winning by 13 points in Iowa in terms of just the party registration. And again, there were a lot of Democrats in 2016 who voted against Hillary Clinton because of the reason that she was not really a working class anti-establishment candidate. Joe Biden literally comes from the working class, and he was a champion of the working class during his time in the Senate. He won a lot of those voters back from George Bush when he ran for president or for vice president in 2008 under Barack Obama. So actually in Kansas, the Democrats are doing a lot better than you'd expect. And here's the thing. They're requesting more ballots. So that's, I guess, good for them. They're requesting more ballots. So Kansas could actually end up being likely. But as of right now, it's only a lean Republican state, which is really weird to say because I usually characterize Kansas as safe. And in a Biden best-case scenario, yeah, it'd be likely, but still not really up for grabs either way. But Kansas, interestingly enough, the Democrats are keeping pace with the GOP. Now in Kentucky, this is more important for the Senate race rather than the presidential race, which is not competitive at all. Surprisingly enough, the Democrats are actually really doing well in Kentucky in terms of mail-in ballots that they've returned. Now, this is kind of skewed because, as we know, these are mostly, a lot of them are conservative Democrats who are going to be voting for Trump. So that's skewed towards them. But based off of raw party registration, the Democrats are doing very well in the state of Kentucky. But a lot of these Democrats, I can assure you, will be voting for Donald Trump. So that's not really, I take that with a grain of salt. Now, Louisiana, again, there are actually more registered Democrats than Republicans in this state. But this is mostly because of Bill Clinton type Democrats. Also doesn't want to show me. So whatever. Louisiana will just be safe red. And then in the state of Maine, we're also going to not do that by congressional district. We're just going to go all or nothing. And right now, the Democrats in Maine are outperforming expectations. They're mailing in more ballots than Republicans so far. So we can just give them all of Maine. Although, actually, you know what? What we're going to do is go with our gut on the second district, which is that it will be a tilt Trump state. So for the congressional districts, I'll go with my gut. Just my prediction. So, and then going over to the state of Maryland, as expected, the Democrats doing pretty well here, very well. They're winning by 60%. What am I saying? They're doing very well. In the state of Massachusetts, and we're nearing a swing state, Michigan. Massachusetts, as of right now, the Democrats, doesn't want to show me. Okay. Does not want to show me how many have been returned, but more Democrats have been requested. And this is a blue state, so we're going to label it solid blue. Now, Michigan is a state that's doing very, very well for the Republican Party right now in terms of mail-in votes. This is one of the bright spots of mail-in votes. So far, they've returned more ballots, and, they requested more ballots so far. And the voting early in person, 100%. So I don't think early voting has opened yet, but, this is something interesting to see because we're seeing, Iowa and Alaska being blue, but Michigan going red. That is very, very fascinating because of how well the Republicans are doing in Michigan, something to watch. Now, Minnesota is another state where it's important to take a look at the mail-in votes because it is kind of a mail-in state, and the Democrats are doing a lot better than I expected. I want to see how many return. Okay, that's why. Okay, Minnesota again. That is a blue state as expected. Now, there is a chance that Trump wins, but based on the data we're seeing, it does not look too good for him right now. Now, going over to the state of Mississippi, we are going to be taking a look at Mississippi. It doesn't want to show me it, so we are going to label it as safe Republican. And then we're also going to be looking now at the state of Missouri, which is somewhat competitive. I mean, I guess you could make the argument that in a Biden best-case scenario, he might be able to win it. But so far, it doesn't want to show me how many have been returned, but the Democrats are requesting less than the Republicans by 8%, so that's a likelier GOP state. And again, there are some registered Democrats in Missouri who are going to be voting for Trump, so Missouri, don't be worried. Don't be worried if you're a Trump supporter. That's a solid state for you. Now, in Montana, based on party registration, the Republicans are underperforming by a little bit, but this is solid for them. Again, there are some Democrats in Montana who like to vote for Steve Bullock, John Tester, conservative Democrats, but vote for Trump at the presidential level. There are going to be some of those in there too. So, yeah. Now, Nebraska, it's not going to look good for Biden because it doesn't seem to show me the 2nd district, but, oh, that's really weird. Okay. Well, it looks like the 65 and older groups seem to be warming up towards Democrats, which they did not do, in 2016. But right now, the Democrats winning by a likely margin in all of in Nebraska at large. They're going to lose these districts by a safe margin, which, again, this makes literally no sense because of the fact that, how could you lose 2 districts by safe margins yet win the popular vote of a state? Again, this makes literally no sense, but we're just going to count it that way. Again, some of these states, like Kentucky going blue by a solid margin, that doesn't make a ton of sense. We're just doing this solely off of the mail-in data we've seen so far. I'm going to save Nevada. I already looked at this because it is a swing state. Very, very good for Joe Biden right now. And they're a 25% margin of victory for the Democrats if the election were to halt right now. And then we're also going to be taking a look at the state of New Hampshire, which very, very encouraging signs for Democrats as of right now. Sorry, my chair is squeaking. I don't know why it's squeaking. But the Democrats are outperforming the ballots that they've requested. So that's a very good sign for them. Getting 57% of the vote so far in New Hampshire from the mail-in votes. And we have a lot of independents, actually, who are probably a lot of these swing voters who are probably going to be voting for Biden more. Again, some of them are going to vote for Trump. That's not deniable. But I think Biden is actually going to outperform Hillary Clinton with independents. And Hillary Clinton beat Trump with a lot of independent moderate voters. So, yeah. Now we're also going to look at the ballot ballots that have been returned from New Jersey. The Democrats, as expected, hitting it out of the park right now. So New Jersey, a blue state, as expected. Not really a big deal. But New Mexico is kind of a big deal, and the Republicans are actually outperforming some expectations for the ballots they've returned. Yeah, they're still losing by 21%, but this has become a safe blue state to some people. And, it's not entirely insurmountable, but it kind of is at the same time. But New Mexico, I do believe, of course, all of these states will literally, all of these states, with the possible exception of Michigan, will probably trend to the right by the time that the election rolls around. So, again, all these safe, Iowa will not be safe blue, nor will Nevada or Arizona. But this is the raw votes we've seen so far. And we're also going to be taking a look at the state of New York. And in New York, Joe Biden, as expected, is currently winning. Although he is actually outperforming the ballots that have been requested and returned. Although, again, this is just... I'll do another one of these videos, like 2 days before the election, because we still have, less than, a little more than 2 weeks to return people's ballots. That's still a lot of time for people to mail in their ballots. Now, North Carolina, again, as I said, looks very, very good for the Democratic Party. This is one of the best states, or swing states for them, in terms of mail-in votes. And they, all registered bill, so... Yeah, so right now the Democrats are winning by 23% in North Carolina, which is, again, kind of interesting to see. You'd expect it to be a little less, but, we're going to see high turnout in all likelihood because of voter enthusiasm for both sides, both Trump and Biden, and just because voters have been focusing more on this election than they ever have in history. So, yeah. Now, party registration, North Dakota, the Democrats are getting killed here as expected, so North Dakota will be a Trump state again. And now we're going to go over to the state of Ohio. Now, Ohio looks very, very solid for the Republican Party because they're winning this race by 46 or by 6%, and mail-in ballots are expected to favor the Democrats by a decent amount. So right now, Ohio being a likely Trump state, that honestly, I'm really surprised at what Ohio's looking like. Again, there is still hope for the Democrats to win here, but wow, that is really, really surprising to me because Democrats are expected to vote by mail more than Republicans are, yet they're losing in Ohio. And it's not like they're losing in North Dakota. They're losing in Ohio by a likely margin. That's really bad news for them. Now going over the state of Oklahoma, that's not really competitive, I guess. Registration, the Democrats are mailing more votes in, but some of these are going to be voting for Donald Trump, and they're just registered Democrats. But whatever, Oklahoma, that's really weird. So, yeah. Oregon, again, this is a weird state because because literally everyone mails a ballot. So, that's basically just, yeah. So, Democrats are winning here as expected. It's kind of weird because, of the ones that have been returned, yeah. So Oregon entirely votes by mail. So you can't really, that's going to stay the same. Now going over to Pennsylvania, this is another state where the Democrats are doing really well in terms of the mail-in voting. The boomers, I guess you could say, are starting to warm up towards the Democrats, which is something they did not do, as I mentioned, in 2016. But right now, it looks like they have an insurmountable lead in Pennsylvania, and Trump needs to win. He has to win Pennsylvania or Arizona and Wisconsin. I mean, if Biden wins Pennsylvania, that's a huge deal. And of course he's winning because this is only the mail-in votes, but Pennsylvania that's a very good sign for Joe Biden, excuse me. And now going over to Rhode Island, as expected, Joe Biden will probably be winning here. Again, I haven't sanity checked the results, but, they're Rhode Island Democrats, easy winning there. Now we're going to go, we have a few more swing states to look at. South Carolina is somewhat of a swing state. I guess you can make that debate or make that argument. It doesn't seem to want to. Okay, so South Carolina we're just going to put as likely, which again, this is kind of a weird map, but whatever. We're also going to be looking at South Dakota, where I'm pretty sure that they'll actually have data for this. Yeah, the Democrats are doing a little bit better than you'd expect, so they're losing by only a likely margin. They're outperforming the number of ballots that they've requested. But, again, this is not going to be the final result. And very far from it. Now, Tennessee, right now in the state of Tennessee, we are looking at the Democrats doing basically what you'd expect. They're getting killed in Tennessee, which is actually a really bad sign for them because there are actually a lot of registered Democrats in Tennessee who are just going to vote for Trump, like conservative Democrats, those types. So, yeah. But again, Tennessee is a red state. They don't really need that. Texas, the Democrats are doing poorly compared to the Republicans. They're losing by 13%, and there have already been 3.1 million votes, mail-in votes that have been returned, and they're losing by 13. That makes it a safe state. So for some reason, Oklahoma is blue, but Texas is solid red. Okay, this is a very, very weird map. Utah, where the mail-in ballots have been a little weird. They've been kind of, they're kind of lopsided, which is not expected, but their Democrats are outperforming Republicans by a little bit. So, yeah, whatever. Utah is basically what you'd expect being weird. But it looks like the Republicans are winning Utah by more like 17, 18 points rather than the original 13, 14-point margin I expected, but whatever. Now, Vermont. Again, the Democrats doing very well here. They're returning more ballots than Republicans, but they don't really – there's no need for the Republicans to be concerned about Vermont. This is a solid blue state. And then in Virginia – we are also going to be looking at this. The Democrats doing very well here. And again, a lot of these mail-in ballots majority are coming from boomers, or not majority, but boomers make up the majority of people who are voting by mail. And that's good news for them, and they're starting to warm up to them. So Virginia will put as safe because it's a 15-point margin. And then in Washington, which we will soon fill out, it looks like the Democrats are doing exactly what you'd expect. They're winning easily, 21% margin in Washington. This is a blue state. The West Coast is blue. Up here is pretty blue, except for Pennsylvania. So the Republicans, they're getting killed in a lot of these states. But again, mail-in ballots are skewed towards Democrats, and elections will turn in to vote by will turn in person to vote. Now, in West Virginia, as you can see, the Democrats are actually returning a lot more ballots than Republicans, but West Virginia has more registered Democrats than Republicans. And a lot of these Democrats are going to be voting for Trump, like Joe Manchin type Democrats. They'll vote for Trump, but like they're still registered Democrats, but they're basically Republicans. Now in Wisconsin, the Democrats are actually outperforming Republicans, and a lot of these are from Boomers, which is again good news for them because the Democrats, yeah, they do well with these Zoomers and I'm a Zoomer, excuse me, Millennials and Gen Z. I think if that, yeah, that's Gen Z. But over here, starting 50 plus, they've been doing pretty poorly, yet they're still winning. So that is a good sign for them. Again, it could just be foolish to assume this, but again, women are returning more ballots than men. So maybe these are more older women who are starting to warm up. These are older women who voted for Trump in 2016, but are shifting towards Biden. So yeah, but in Wisconsin right now, I remember in 2016, the early voting and mail-in votes was actually favorable to Republicans in states like Ohio and Iowa and Wisconsin, which is why some people actually started to say, hey, these states could be competitive, maybe not, but whatever. But Wisconsin, as of right now, is a tilt Democratic state, according to the mail-in votes. So again, this is really weird electoral map. We're going to finish off with Wyoming, and it would be very fitting if Wyoming ended up being a blue state, but whatever. So, yeah, it's not a blue state, but the Democrats are outperforming the number of ballots that they've requested by a little bit. But yeah, this would be the final electoral map if the election basically ended today and we just counted what's based off of party registration. Again, a lot of these states don't mean anything because like Oklahoma, no way in heck that state goes red. Same with Kentucky and West Virginia. Those are states that have more registered Democrats than Republicans, but these Democrats will indeed be voting for Donald Trump. And then Iowa, same thing could happen. There are a lot of registered Democrats in Iowa who like to vote for conservative Democrats. But vote for Trump. So yeah, as in Texas and Ohio were only the real shockers. So the Republicans should be the Republicans. This could have looked really, really bad for them, but it didn't. But so they should be cautiously optimistic. So should the Democrats though, because they're winning in a lot of states like Arizona, Minnesota, and in fact, the early voting in Arizona back in 2018 was actually favorable to Martha McSally more than Kirsten Sinema. She was the Republican, so that's a very good sign for them in Arizona. So, again, that's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching this video. Be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. What do you guys think? And again, I know I'm going to get a comment about this. This is not my actual prediction. This is just if the election ended today. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.